Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the digital event, Deep Resilience, How to Coach on an Emotional Level. My name is Lucia and I'm an events manager at CMI. I will shortly be handing over to emotional logic coach Sven Lauch to begin today's event. If you have got any questions during the webinar, you can ask them using the live chat box on the right of your screen, and we shall answer as many as we can. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared with you later on for those who book to attend. And it will also be available on the CMI website and the CMI YouTube channel. Now over to founder of Eyes Up Training Limited, Sven Lauch, to begin. Enjoy the session.
Thank you, Lucia, and thank you to the CMI for actually giving me the opportunity, because I could see that there was a need coming up that we need to deal with in the sense of emotions. Just quickly about me, who am I? I'm Sven Lauch. I'm actually originally East German. I sometimes say I'm an ex-communist because I was 15 when the Berlin Wall came down. It took my whole life apart. My worldview was a lie. My career plan just vanished. And I found out my parents had kind of lived a double life as part of being under constant surveillance by the secret police. Now, a lot of that story kind of informs today what I do and why I do what I do. I was deeply traumatized and had to walk a journey of recovery myself. And I found an amazing method that helped me to break through the whole stuff inside myself and become a more resilient person. And I want to just use this chance and pass on a lot of that stuff today. So I'm really looking forward. My company is called Eyes Up Training Limited. I am a qualified emotional logic coach. You might have never heard of emotional logic, and that's fine. We're gonna go through this process a little bit. What we're also not going to do in this seminar is I'm not going to show you any statistics. This webinar is completely practical. I want to take you through an example of a person that I'm coaching and want to show you how I take this person through a process to become more resilient and to become more mentally and emotionally stronger. And I think this is something we probably hopefully have all realized. We need to coach people suddenly on a different level. We used to coach people on this level of numbers, KPIs. We try to bring them to perform better, to have more output. But with the pandemic and with a lot of people being traumatized, emotionally struggling with the stuff that they have to go through, we suddenly realize probably more than ever how much the emotional and mental life of people actually impacts their performance. So how can we now make a difference? How can we coach people? And I want to start sharing with a little story that I basically have one of my clients to share with you just the impact it has. So the story is that the young man is an engineer. He works as a machine operator in a manufacturing company, and he works in shifts. So one day he comes to his workplace, and the person who was running the machine before him left it in a mess. And he became very much emotionally irritated in this moment, and that had a few reasons. Number one, he was just been told off by the management a few weeks before for having not cleaned up his workspace. So he kind of felt really unjust that, he was told off for this stuff, and now he comes here and finds the place in a mess. And the other thing is, he just struggled. He just didn't know what to do, kind of. Next, he like this whole emotional stuff came up so quickly that he just struggled, and he realized he couldn't really concentrate anymore. He felt like, oh no, now I'm really kind of gonna have a whole day. This whole situation is gonna go around my head all day. Goes round and round and round, and he would just be afraid of probably doing some errors. So just some parts that don't come out properly, and he was just full of fear. So now I hope you can already see, this small incident can for a person have a massive impact. And I want to make this webinar as interactive as possible. So I'm going to ask you now a question. I put it on a presentation as well. So I want to ask you the question is, how do you think this moment, this situation, that just morning arriving at a messy workplace, how the situation impacts the performance and the professional life of said employees? So I want you to just put the comments in the chats, just put them in there and just let me know what you think could be an issue that this person I am just sharing the story about might actually face, in a sense of performance, in a sense of their professional life. So please use the chat, just put in what you think. And while you do that, I will also just share with you the things that I observed in this situation. So the things that I observed was that he would have lower productivity. He would have a higher risk of error. I mean, that is what he told me. He would be afraid of things going wrong. Well, you could hopefully hear, his anxiety levels were quite high, and actually he has some personal problems and some family issues in the background happening. So there is a risk, and he had already a year before some sick leave just because he couldn't cope anymore. There's mistrust towards colleagues and management. Lower self-esteem that happens. A high risk that he possibly quits his job if things like this come up again. And yeah, so there are some really cool comments. So cluttered environment brings cluttered thought patterns. Exactly. Distracts from the usual activity, productivity. Might feel fearful, telling off from the manager, and so on. Exactly. So we can already see that there is such an impact on this emotional side on the person. And to now try to go to the person and just coach them and say, okay, how can we improve your numbers? How can we improve your output? I hope you can already see it's oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot more stuff going on. Now, here are a few things that he tried to do to deal with this situation so far. Of course, he cleaned up the working place without telling anyone. And he hoped that his colleague would notice and show some appreciation. I don't think he ever received any appreciation for that. But that was something that he deeply hoped would happen. But it didn't. So it just adds another layer to the problem. As I mentioned, he had already some family issues going around. So he has already been in counseling for about half a year last year, and he hadn't moved forward on his emotional journey at all. So there was already a massive impact on him. And the only thing that he kept thinking about what to try to do is to try to become tougher. Something is wrong with him, he felt. Something is wrong with me, and I really shouldn't feel like this. What's going on with me? Why am I here? Why am I going through this? And the challenge we as coaches and as leaders have is to coach a person like that. And to just try to wipe it off and just say, like, hey, here at work, and don't worry about your family stuff, and just focus on your work and don't overthink it. All these kind of things. We can't wipe those emotional patterns off very quickly. And I used an example on purpose that is actually not COVID related. Okay, it's not COVID related. It is an issue that was there before, and we just have never noticed as much because a low-performing employee was not that much of an issue if you had a high number of high-performing employees. But with the pandemic, we suddenly have a mass impact on people, and so we need to look forward to bring some change here. So here's the question, how would you coach this person? Maybe you'd even put some chats in some ideas that you would try to say to this person. Put it in a chat. Just let me know what you think. What would you try to do and say to this person? And then, so what are things? Tell me, what do you think you could do? Arrange a meeting to hear what they're feeling. Exactly. Restore his confidence. Andrew, I like that. I like the idea of restoring the confidence. And that's exactly where the big struggle is. How do we do this, asking for solutions in his mind. Trying to do the best they can. Yes. If there are things going on, you have to raise it with the management because it has an impact. In the end, people are paid per hour, but they're not necessarily performing per hour. Okay, what I would like to do is let's talk about this word of resilience. It's a buzzword. It goes round and round and round at the moment. And I heard a great sentence from Jay John last year in August on his Facebook profile. He had a small video, and he started this video with this very sentence on the screen. Resilience isn't just bouncing back. It is leaping forward. Now, let me illustrate this a little bit more. So, Alan, can you just please take off the screen? Thank you. And I have the spring as a metaphor because this very sentence from Jay John brought something to mind, and I realized oh wow, this is really awesome. Now, very often we go through life like this, like when you look on a spring from the top, and we have the good times, we're at the top, we're really feeling good, all full of joy, and then something stupid happens and we just go down, 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 down. We go into this kind of space of grieving where it's feeling messy emotionally, it doesn't feel right, and then we try to say well, there's nothing I can do about this, I just accept it, I just try not to think about it so that I can restore quickly my place of joy. And I think that is one of the things that we try to do so many times in our lives. We try to just very quickly overcome this season of struggle and very quickly come back. I call this the emotional trap because it is the trap that is forced. We try to overcome, we try not to feel unpleasant, we try not to have these feelings, we just try to very quickly go back to top and become performing again. But over time, that can help bring us to a place where we become superficially joyful, where we're not really connecting anymore, where we build a wall between our heart and our mind, where we begin to actually disconnect from our feelings. And that is exactly what happened to me when I lived from the fall of the Berlin Wall. I just shut off my feelings. I had no feelings at all about this time for about 3 decades. And I didn't even know. I had no idea it was happening. Now, what could resilience be? Because this is the traditional bouncing back. Let's come back very quickly to the plot. But I see resilience more like this. And that is, if I'm in a place of joy and everything is fine, and we go down, then here's some energy. Emotions are energy in motion, emotion. So if I to use the energy that the emotions have, if I learn to understand what my emotions are trying to tell me, what is the actual message, and is there something I can do about that message, then resilience can be built through growth, through leaping forward, through movement into a better place. And that is what I believe is how resilience is built. Resilience is not built by just trying to go round and round and round. Resilience is really built when we learn to use our emotions that have a useful purpose to move us forward in life, to bring us to the next stage. Okay, so now what did I do with my friend? Ellen, just give me my slides back. Thank you. So how do you coach on an emotional level? How do you help somebody coming out of this loop of not going forward, but actually, how can we get this person to actually move forward? Now, here's some don'ts. And we had a few of them, I think, already in the chat. So one of the things that we find at the moment a lot about helping people to build resilience is we offer them techniques to distract themselves. So things like, we have a lot of resilience training that goes into like learning breathing techniques, like these calming techniques, to do yoga, or learning ways how can we just calm ourselves down. That is a good solution temporarily. It is a good solution to bring yourself into an emotional safe place to then do something about this. But unfortunately, we get stuck there. We just say, like, calm down. And then once we are feeling fine, we try to face the world again. And it's not solving the issue. It is happening again and again and again. And we want to move forward. Everything is going to be okay is a sentence I keep hearing many, many, many times. We try to soothe people by saying, hey, everything is going to be okay. Just imagine yourself in the position of, it's not okay. The other person can't know that. You don't know if everything is going to be okay. So let's try to avoid a sentence like that, because we don't know that. Now, this might be a bit of controversial, but we also have seen in the media, it's okay not to be okay. Again, that might help the person to calm down initially and know, like, okay, it's okay to not be okay and to be in this position. But you have to offer some type of help, some type of follow-up plan to move forward. If this is the only thing we have to offer, is to saying it's okay not to be okay, the person will feel rejected. I noticed for myself, I wasn't okay, but I didn't want to be not okay. I wanted to become okay. I wanted to get better, but I didn't know how to. And if somebody would just say, like, hey, it's okay not to be okay, I don't want to be in that space. So please don't keep telling me the same sentence. I need help, So let's move on from sentences like this. How can I help you? Somebody had asked a question in the chat, what we could do is like to say, like, hey, how would you like to help? I have asked that question many times, even to my clients. And the common answer is, I don't know. So if you ask that question, you have to have a plan B. You have to have an answer to the question. So That's really important. Now, when we coach people, this is a really important sentence to understand. Unpleasant emotions are a call to defend your values and not a sign of defeat. This is a breakthrough revelation for me, because once I understood that feeling unpleasant is not negative. It is energy. It is telling me something about myself, that I should do something. And how I help people in my coaching is I take them through 3 stages. So Ellen, can you just remove the slides for a moment? Thank you. So I take them through 3 stages, and this method is called emotional logic. And the 3 stages I take people through is, number 1, we try to make sense of the emotion. So you might have seen on the slides there were some cards on the side. So I use those type of cards. I do have them laying around here too. So we try to make sense of the emotions, and we explore what is the useful purpose of those unpleasant emotions. We explore the idea of emotional safe places, so the person feels emotionally safe to make a plan. Okay, that's the idea. When we have these techniques to calm ourselves down, let's not just stay there of calming down. Let's come to the place of, what is the emotion telling me? What can I do to move forward? So I teach basically people about the useful purpose of emotions and give them the idea of safe places, help them to identify their safe place, how it works for them, how they perceive safety. The second step is we take them through the idea of discovering your values. And that is really cool, because I will take you through this stage and through the 3rd stage in a moment. And the 3rd stage is we make a smart action plan. We actually make a plan how this person can use this emotion that they experience and the values that they discovered to move forward. And we make this smart because specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, timed. We really want to make something happen, so there's accountability involved. So this coaching model is not just you can feel. This coaching model is designed to move people forward. Okay, Alan, can you give me my slides back, please? So what am I doing the 2nd stage? And I ask people, what have you lost? So for my client, when we came to this place, I said, like, so what have you lost in this situation? When this happened, what have you lost? What are you afraid of losing? And this is his list. I helped him to create that list, because to start with, you're like, oh, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what you mean. So he told me stories, and I realized, like, could it be you lost concentration? Oh, yes. And justice, he felt like it was unjust. He's afraid of losing his job. He's afraid, or he's losing the sense of belonging to the wider team and to the company. He's losing a sense of being enough. He's losing the sense of feeling safe. He loses the peace of a peaceful environment at work. He loses trust in leadership. He loses trust in colleagues. He loses confidence to process a situation like this. He loses confidence to move on. He loses the ability to hold himself together and not to explode. And he said, like, if you put people, I feel like when he gets pressed against the wall, he just kicks off. And he loses the belief that this vicious cycle would ever end. And that was just the 1st session. Now, these losses, I help them then to reframe and say, like, actually, you only see something as lost if you valued it in the first place. So this list of things that we just put down here are things that you value, that matter to you, that are really, really important to you. They have nothing to do with the messy workplace. These are very deep personal revelations. And when we do the action plan is we try to find one of those losses that this person feels confident about to recover or to restore. And in his case, I said, like, so what do you think you want to do? You think confidently you can do next stage. And he chose concentration. And I said to him, like, okay, so how do you want to do this? And he said, like, I don't really know. I said, okay, I have an idea. How about you use your anger, this anger energy? Anger, the useful purpose is to make change around the world around you. I said, how about you take this anger and you commit yourself that you will let go of the emotions that you feel right now and all the losses, but you commit yourself to also that when you come home, you will look into the situation, you go through the losses, you name a few more things, and you try to learn about yourself. Who are you? What is going on with you? And you learn a little more about your values. And a week later, he said to me, it was much, much better. He had a much, much better week. Now, we haven't brought a big solution to his problem yet. But what I helped him to do is to take his emotions seriously, to show him with this list that there is a lot of stuff going on. And each of those losses creates its own emotional response. And that what he experienced as an overwhelm is the combination of all of them. Now, in the second week, I asked him this question again, or rephrased one of the questions, because I felt like a lot of his answers came across like it could feel needy. It's like, oh, can everybody do something for me? Can everybody kind of give me a piece of belonging? Can everybody make sure we are in peace? Can everybody make sure I'm okay? So, and I felt like, values don't really work like this. Values are something that really is an energy that drives us forward. So we looked into another situation, and I said, like, so what do you feel you're unable to offer to others? Because he told me, like, if he doesn't do something, then he feels like the other people lose something. I said, like, well, there are losses of other people. What are you losing when you just let that happen and other people lose something? What do you think you haven't done? What have you not offered? And this was his response. A sense of warmth and friendliness, a sense of belonging, and a sense of a welcoming atmosphere. Now, that really touched me on a very, very deep level. And I probably would do this for you too, because this is where you suddenly realize that is what the person is, not just something they value. And if this is under threat, they kick off. But it's also once this person comes out of that shell and feels confidence about those values, once this person comes out of this, he can become a key person to develop and help creating such an atmosphere at the workplace. He could become a key person to look at and find out, how can we create a team environment with warmth and friendliness that has a sense of belonging and that has a welcoming atmosphere. I understood when I heard those words that these were his ultimate, deepest levels. And I can see those values like a red thread going through all his life. It is the reason why he has family problems, because those things he just didn't go for, or he didn't try, or he didn't feel confident he could help establish this. I could see he has these problems at his workplace because he wants this space created, so he doesn't want to go straight to the management and just complain about somebody, because it's not what he would love as a culture around him. And it was amazing, because knowing this was like, wow, now imagine you are coaching someone and you come to this deep sense from a messy workplace. It's a messy workplace. That's where we start the conversation. And now you can connect. You see the person struggling again, you know why. And there's a lot more empathy coming inside you, because you can relate to that person much, much deeper, because you suddenly know something that this person really values, that this person really, or what really matters to this person. And that is where the power of coaching on an emotional level comes, where you really can deeply connect with each other. Now, what you don't want to do is try to create that atmosphere for this person. What I want to coach him into is helping to learn how he can learn to communicate and to create that environment around him, not for the whole team, just with one person at a time. For instance, with this one colleague that left the space in a mess. So this is the next action plan, is like, okay, we want to learn ways how he can communicate to move forward, to build a relationship without all the fear of losing everything, but actually coming and say, like, hey, you value this, use the energy and feel affirmed that this is good that you value this. And I want you to learn to establish this around you. And that is basically where, we're going to go into more smart action plans in the future. And you will, I see people change, not immediately, but remember, I had just 2 sessions with this person. He had half a year of counseling and nothing brought him to this place. In 2 sessions, we came to such a deep level that he suddenly really connects to something very deep inside him. And, and I can already see him, the emotions, this overwhelm, these big spikes of emotions, they're already flattening, because he becomes aware of this emotional journey that he's on. And so this is kind of how I coach somebody. I go away from the situation. I go into a grieving mode, because this is what emotional logic really is learning to grieve and helping the person to understand what they're losing, what really matters to them, and help them to own those values and to move forward from that place. Cool. So just a reminder, unpleasant emotions, they're not negative. They are a call to defend your values. And I hope you could see this in this session. It's not a sign of defeat. So don't feel bad about your unpleasant emotions. Feel energized, feel empowered. Okay, question and answers. Ellen, you can take away the slides again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sven. And thank you to everybody who submitted questions in advance. We're going to start with a question from Tony. Tony is asking, what specific tools or techniques or models can be taught to help improve emotional intelligence?
Well, Tony, I hope you have seen one thing that I basically offer and I use this in my daily life. Okay, the beautiful thing of the method that I teach is I can teach it my son and my child. So as I said, the method of emotional logic is something I discovered through a GP who invented this, who just lives around the corner from here. I live in Plymouth, so he's not far away from here. And when I discovered this method and the depth it can take me, and it can take other people, this was amazing, because I've seen in my coaching of just individuals how over time they just become a lot more relaxed. I coached a CEO from a local company here, and she was always apologizing for every small thing that could go wrong or went wrong. But for the last half year, I just see her glowing and shining, and she has stopped apologizing. And what she calls her anger that she really struggled with, she says, like, I love my positive anger. So what I helped her is like really become aware of the emotions. And so emotional logic is certainly one of the tools. In the end, it's a combination. So it's a combination of learning to soothe yourself, first of all, to a level where you can think clearly. So there's a combination of bringing those tools in, these techniques to bring yourself down. Emotional logic for me fills the gap in between to really learn about the emotions, what they're telling us. And then at the other end is learning to communicate, to not be aggressive, not to be passive, but to come into a place of assertiveness where we build relationships. And that is what the output of emotional intelligence in the end is. How you recognize an emotional intelligent person is they are great communicators in tense situations. So yeah, that's kind of one of the tools I use, and I love it. I mean, I hope you can hear that.
And on the back of Tony's question, we got Katina's question. She's asking, what if you're not typically empathetic? How do you become more in touch with your emotions?
Haha. Katina, I love your question because it's my story. I think I shared in the presentation that I was completely disconnected from my emotions. I was just simply always overwhelmed. I tried to reject them all the time. And my wife told me at some point, he's like, yeah, you should show a little bit more empathy towards me. And I'm not, you're not really empathetic. And I had to agree with that about 2.5 years ago, that was actually true. What emotional logic did to me was that I used those cards and I gave them one day my wife and said, like, can you show me how you feel about a situation? She put the cards down and I looked at her card pattern and saw the messiness and the chaos of it. And I said, like, I think I know and can feel how you feel. Because I could. I had learned to respond to my own emotions. I had learned to recognize them, to have names for them. And what had happened is suddenly the cards were on the table and I could feel her pattern. And that was an amazing experience for me. This was like, oh, wow, I'm emotional, not just for me, I'm emotional for someone else. And I experienced this now over and over again. If you would have seen me 3 years ago, I wouldn't have had that kind of peacefulness, compassionate, empathetic way on me because I struggled myself. I just had shut down everything. So yeah, so that has helped me, is learning about emotions and the useful purpose and learning what their messages are and move forward from there.
Phil is saying, the most difficult coaching experiences are with those individuals with whom you share little in terms of background or experience, and those whose ambitions differ from our own. As we strive for diversity of experience, background, and talent to improve creativity and strengthen outputs, how do you coach when approaches differ?
Now, this is a question I do love a lot because it goes into this whole idea of diversity and inclusion, cultural differences, and all the things. Now, with the coaching method, I basically love to use because I go drill deeply into the actually individual's values. And what I've learned in my own journey, as I said, I come from East Germany, so I had to transfer from communist culture into a kind of a capitalist, German capitalist culture when I was 15 and was forced to do that. But the other thing that also happened was I had to, or when I decided 12 years ago to move to the UK, I thought like, oh, it's a Western country, it's probably quite similar, so it's going to be fine. And then I moved here. And the people here are very, very different. I had to learn one thing a few years ago. It's like the Brits don't like the word conflict. If you use the word conflict, don't want to go there. But underneath all of us, underneath all our cultural baggage, all the cultural things that we have, we are still humans and we function all in a very, very similar way. And if we learn to stop just trying to look for the behavior and change the behavior of a person, but actually learn to understand what are the values that drive that behavior, then we can learn to connect to our differences. One of the things I love about teams is that the real power and the innovation and the amazingness about teams is in the difference of the team members and their personal individual differences. So again, where our struggles come from in this kind of approach, how to coach someone who's different from me, is there are things about this person that threaten my values. And there are things about me that threaten the other person's values. And if we learn to go inside ourselves and say, like, what am I afraid of losing right now? Why do I find this so difficult? What is going on? And we drill through these cultural labels that we create, and really come to this inner space, then we can communicate better with each other. We can learn better from each other. And for me, for instance, I struggled a lot of times with leaders in my time as an employee, because people always say like, oh, Sven, you're not really teachable, you're not really willing to learn, you're not really committed, you're not really loyal, and I was like, what's going on? And in my CMI level 5 course, when I did that, I reflected on that, and I realized one of the things is that all those situations where that happened had one thing in common, and that was, I'm by nature pushing boundaries. I'm just continually pushing boundaries. I'm questioning things, and I'm not doing this because I'm against somebody. I'm not against the person in front of me or anything. I'm just extremely curious. It's my core value. It's part of my nature, is being curious. And I know that now I can go and say, hey, guys, I'm really curious and I'm struggling right now because my curiosity kicks off and I feel like I'm being put in a box. And so coaching people of differences, learn to drill down and really learn about what matters to those people on the individual basis. Don't try to go and say like, oh, the Germans are like this, and the Lucia is from Italy, the Italians are like this. It doesn't work like this. Germans are not, there is no such a thing like the generic German. We are all individuals and we have all our own stuff. And learn about the person's individual values. And then you can coach the person because you actually can connect.
Yeah, I like that. I like to pick a question from the live chat, a very interesting one and actual one. So, how will you help a good employee who finds it so hard to cope with the sudden changes due to pandemic that is thinking of giving up his job?
I think that is probably one of the things. Now, with change, what I discovered is people don't resist change. We resist losing things. William Bridges wrote a book called Managing Transitions. And one of these beautiful things that he creates or explains is there is a difference between change and psychological transition. Change is the actual environment that changes, the whole thing, how we do things. But the hardest bit in any type of change is the psychological transition, to actually get the people and the people's emotions and hearts moved on. And he brings something very cool into the game and says like, new beginnings start with endings. So helping this person to really deal with that sudden change is, don't try to solve the big issue, but try to look into the small issues. It's like, it's a small moment where this person really struggles. There's something, one specific part of this change that this person is really, really struggling with. And learn, what is the person losing? Hey, what are you losing right now? What are you afraid of losing? What matters? And that will open up an environment that you can't see if you focus on the behavior. It becomes, we call this in emotional logic terms, hidden losses. We bring the hidden stuff to the open, and then we learn from this, because once we know things are there, we can action something. If we don't know, then we don't. So one of the things, with working from home is, if you have just a very unhelpful environment at home, you just want to quickly look for a job where you have an office job to get out of the house. But if you don't know this as a coach, that there is an issue in the family, then you will struggle. You don't know what to coach for. So go to this person and just ask them, hey, what have you lost? What were the things that really matter to you before the pandemic happened? What are the things that you feel like you can't do any longer that you used to be able to do? And really help the person to process those things. Because the first step I feel with people is, once they have named those losses, their emotions already calm down and they become more sensible in a sense. So yeah, ask them. Yeah, new beginnings start with endings. So if you want to have a new beginning, learn what they are having to leave behind.
I think we've got time for one last question. You touched on your management and leadership level 5 course with CMI. I'm aware you studied this course. How do you think this has benefited you in relation, of course, to the topic of the webinar?
You know, this level 5 course, and if anybody of you is going to do the course, there is one tip I would love to give everybody. Don't make it a tick boxing exercise because your company wants you to have that certificate and thing on your CV. What I did with the course, it had, you know, back then it had two sides. It was kind of there was one module around management, so actually managing people, and there was one module around personal development. Now, the management part, in my case, was I started the other way around. I started with the management first, and then did the personal development second. In that year I did the course, I became aware of my emotional trauma from my fall of the Berlin Wall story. And what happened there was I used this course to begin to reflect on myself. So on the management part, I reflected a lot on the role I had as a trainer, on the conflicts and the conflicts I had with the management around me and the people around me, and try to really deeply go into a reflective mode. And I told Karen Sweeting from the City College here in Plymouth, who is the coordinator at the college for the CMI, and I told her, like, for me, just writing even this assignment became a healing, a part of my inner healing. And the other thing, you know, the personal development side was I looked for a book I can read, and I found a book literally a few days before the course started called Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. And I took this book and I knew, like, I want to read this book and use it for this personal development side. And again, this assignment became such an amazing reflective experience. And after that year, of course, you know, the course itself was not giving me all the tools to go through the emotional stuff. But after that year of having these two parts of the course and all the stuff that also happened, I came from an emotional wreck in January 2018 to feeling home in myself in January 2019. And that was like, wow. So if you do the course, don't just go there and just get your assignment written and just get it done and over. There is such an opportunity to go deep and learn about yourself. And I want to encourage you to do that, because it was life, for me, it was a vehicle of life transformation.
Thank you, Sven. Feeling home in yourself, that's a challenge. I like that sentence.
Yeah.
Fortunately, this was the last question for today. I'd like to thank you very much for sharing your insights and expertise with us, and thank you everyone who joined us and participated. Just a couple of reminders: if you're a member of CMI, you can log into Management Direct by using the link in the live chat box and get access to a wide range of exclusive development resources. If you're not yet a member, you can join our community also with a link that is in the live chat box and gain full access to the Management Direct portal. You're welcome to sign up to the free CMI newsletters. Thank you again for your attention and enjoy the rest of the day. Over back to Sven for his goodbyes. Thank you.
Yeah, Ellen, can you share the slides again? Thank you. So how can you kind of take or make contact with me? I created a special page just for this webinar where you can go, and I want to answer all the questions. So if you have more questions, please just drop them still into chat, or you know, go to this page, eyesup.eu/CMI, and just send them to me. I want to basically run a series of little videos that I publish on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, but also on LinkedIn, and really go and answer more of those questions. So please give more questions. Then contact with me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way. If you type in Sven Lauch, I think I will very likely be the very top. So contact, you know, connect with me. There are seminars I can offer to your teams and to your management and leadership. So I would love to teach you in much deeper level the method that I'm using, because it's a coaching method. I'm not a therapist, not a counselor. I'm a coach who teaches skills. And I hope you could see, I'm not going to bore you with some statistics. We go right into it and learn something new. So, and thank you again, Lucia and Matt Roberts from the CMI for giving me this opportunity. This was awesome. And thanks for all the beautiful message already in the chat. So in the comments, thank you very much. This was awesome. And back to Lucia.